with Emre Brookes. And next month we will have a seminar from Globus. And yeah, and if you look at our website, sciencegateways.org, I can put it in the chat. Our deadlines for the conference are coming up for submissions. So if you are interested in that, we have our conference this year in Bozeman in October. Come to beautiful Montana. It's a different location. And we will, oh yeah, we started recording again. So yeah, if you wouldn't like to be in the recording, maybe just turn off the video. We will have for the discussions probably the recording also on. We will have it on. But yeah, with that, it's really our pleasure to have Emre on here presenting GenApp along of SGX3. And with that, I give it to you, Emre.
Thank you so much, Sandra. And I'd like to start out by thanking Sandra and Claire for inviting me to present today, and all of you for attending. So I'm going to make that small so it's not in my way. So today, yeah, I'm Emre Brookes. Montana is beautiful. That's my primary affiliation, the University of Montana. I'm also affiliated with some other institutions. Okay, so what are we going to do today? Let me get the, okay. Let me get like the little laser pointer. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with an overview of GenApp, what it is, why it was created. I want to explain it, so hopefully it's understandable as to what it does. So I may get a bit technical. And then I'm going to go over a series of use cases. And as we started this in 2014, so it's been a decade, and I want to share some thoughts I have about GenApp, and yeah, okay. So what is GenApp? GenApp is a framework for scientific researchers with code to deploy to rapidly build applications, including science gateways. So that was the little images are that came out of SGCI boot camp, which was really useful. It was a wonderful experience, and I think I'm not sure if they're still doing them under SGX3, but that was a really nice offering of SGCI when it was around, and highly recommended.
To jump in then for a moment,
Sure.
It's called Focus Week now.
Okay.
It's still the same concept, and if you want to apply for that, also those applications are open at the moment, and then I let you take it again. You gave me the hint, sorry.
Yeah, it was really a good experience, and it helps one to really think about a lot of important factors that they may not be thinking about, and I really enjoyed the experience and found it beneficial. Highly recommend. So from one perspective, GenApp helps to minimize dark code. And I qualify this for research labs that cannot afford a dedicated software team by making it easy to put existing code on the web. So, I'll hit these points again. GenApp was created for practical purposes. We needed it. So there was a 2012, 2013, there was a joint NSF, EPSRC, that's the UK, award given. It was an SI2. And it created the CCP SAS, which is the collaborative computational project for small angle scattering. And as part of this, we had a a diversity of codes to do analysis and simulation in that field. And these were, written in a variety of languages, and they had they were written for specific labs and for their users, but had general applicability to the community of researchers in that field. And one of the goals of this award was to expose all of this on the web, to create web applications so that avoid the hassles of trying to distribute code, which SASE and SOMA were doing. The University College London, their group, it was a sort of in-house, ran on one machine, and they weren't able to. You had to go there to use it if you wanted to, and it was tied to their equipment. A lot of effort goes into developing these codes. They're specialized in sort of a limited field, but they're utilizing experimental techniques on billion-dollar typically installations. The Argonne National Labs Advanced Photon Source just is undergoing an upgrade, and it was $815 million was budgeted for the upgrade, to upgrade their ring. I mean, these are expensive instruments, and there's lots of people using them, and the time to run experiments is metered out to people, in an award process, and these users they collect this data, and they're typically biologists or material scientists, and frequently they have no or little coding experience, and so these beamline scientists create codes to help their users or to help their own research, and they know enough to get something to work, and typically they're command line based, and so this was one of the goals of the project, was to get these accessible to users, and to get better advantage of the investment of public monies that went into developing these codes for the communities. Okay. So how are we going to do this? We spent some time trying to conceive of the best way, and looking at what was available then, 2012, 2013. And we really didn't find anything. I mean, one option was, okay, just handwrite all the codes to building up web servers, or finding something, some framework that we could try to squeeze into. I mean, these are not just a pretty website. These are websites that need often access to high performance computing resources, or GPU clusters, or sort of a variety of executable models. And an idea that I had toyed with for a long time, it's sort of like generalizing things, was to, okay, let's try to make this as easy as possible. And so to make it as easy as possible, we generalized it and probably created more upfront work, but in the long term, it's enabled us to make it much easier to maintain, and to bring in other groups or individuals that want to create their own websites. So the idea was, the researchers with code to deploy, these beamline scientists or other research scientists in some lab, have something that they want to get out there, but they don't want to have to learn or necessarily adopt some deep framework, and they don't know anything about. I mean, they didn't know CSS or HTML or any kind of JavaScript or things like that. Typically, they'll be in. I mean, there's some Fortran codes. Okay, there are C codes, there are Python codes, there are I think those are sort of the initial pool were written in those languages. So the idea was to sort of divorce them from the computer scientists that are helping it work. I mean, what do we really need to know from these codes, these executables? So our idea was to use some sort of an IDL and sort of interface definition language to describe their inputs and outputs for some executable, and that we concluded should be sufficient to build up applications, and that all the researcher would need to do is to create this definition file and then modify or wrap their executable to accept inputs as specified in their definition file and produced outputs as specified in their definition file. And so this is the structure. And I will sort of go through the steps in a minute. They build up, this is sort of definition file based. So they build up these definition files and run the tool. And the tool, the GenApp engine, builds complete applications, plural. We have multiple targets. So that same set of definitions can be used to build web apps or other things. I'll mention some of those as we come up. I'm not going to go into details as to how this all works, but it's similar on the other side, where we have language definition files and code fragments that get assembled. So to GenApp, it's the term we've come to use, is you just take an existing executable module, and then you create, and these are in JSON is what we chose. I mean, I guess YAML was another option. They seem to be somewhat interchangeable, but JSON was what we did. That describes the inputs and the outputs. And then they have to wrap or modify that executable to accept inputs and outputs as they defined. And then they add the module and potentially other modules to the menu file. So these are all text JSON files. Run the GenApp tool, and which processes those definition files in conjunction with language and assembly files. And then it produces the complete application that works. So some of the target languages we have, and the one that's gotten the most attention is the HTML5 PHP. We have Java GUI applications. We've done Qt. We had some Android applications generated. API, right? So if you have, and I've used this one, that one actually creates what's created. It can be in anything, whatever code fragments they are. So like the API one is a Node JavaScript application that creates an API that can execute the modules. Again, sort of the line of divorcing the responsibilities. The sort of dark code story. There's lots of cases where labs, I mean, these labs, even they're working at these high dollar facilities, a lot of them, they don't have huge budgets. I mean, their budgets go into their instrumentation. they don't typically, one typical scenario will be they'll get a postdoc or student, grad student, or another researcher, and they'll come in and they'll develop something, and then they'll move on, right? They don't have teams of computer scientists to make something wonderful for them. They need something that's low overhead, and one of the complaints I've heard is, I don't want to have to learn one, GUI language, and then something else comes along, we've got to change it all and learn the obscurities and get caught in a specific target environment, or somebody will come in and write something, and then they get they get their degree, or they move on, they get a job, and that's it. That's nobody knows how to run it anywhere again. So this sort of makes it easy to help them define their inputs and outputs, and have this general thing that even if GenApp didn't exist, it's really good to have executables with some kind of an interface definition language defined with them, so that someone can come along and interface with that executable. Some of the time, sometimes it's just to clean up their own code. I mean, it's not beautiful CS code that they're writing. It's some mathematical analysis, simulation, etc. Okay, so as I said, we can generate multiple languages. The one that got the most love over the years is the web targets, and currently the web generated languages have support for plotting using multiple frameworks. The full Plotly. Plotly is really nice. We like it. Also Bouquet. We started out with Flot, which was somewhat primitive in comparison. I mean, it was a good tool, and it worked, but Plotly seems to be giving us what we like. Bouquet is nice. One issue with Bouquet is version. You sort of get some version tie-in. So anyway, our recommendation is Plotly. There's messaging channels from the application if you want to get fancier. I'll talk a little bit about that. The module definition file as an interface definition language is also been expanded to also not just talk about the interface, but also describe aspects of the user interface. So we have, through that, the ability to have calculated fields, where one field is dependent on the values in another, or multiple other fields with mathematical equations. We have this concept of repeaters, which is a tree structure of fields that are dependent, and so that you can create a dynamic user interface based on that. We've added user and job management. There's integrated feedback. Some of the other bits, we have support for atomic structures or trajectories using JSMol and also NGL. We've integrated optionally. You use whatever pieces you want of GenApp. It's sort of these JSON files, like you turn bits on and off that affect the generated application. So, identity management with OAuth 2. We had CME Lab working for file sharing. It's not actively being used right now because there was a use case, and we didn't pursue it. We proved its concept, but we do have an integrated cloud file system that's sort of our own. We had a wonderful engagement with SGCI, where the early ones, and I'll probably show you a bit of that here, and when we get to the use cases. The user interface, although powerful, was not pretty by any means. It was functional. We had a wonderful engagement with SGCI to go over that, and we Yeah, so it was Marlo helped with we got through the design and then spent some time with Marcus Christie, and we integrated Bootstrap and Bootswatch for styling, and simultaneously created some layout control leveraging CSS grid, so we can make things prettier and expose that again in that module definition file if users want to have finer control over the look and feel. Yeah, here's the point about Plotly is that Plotly supports lots of different plot styles, and all of them are supported. If somebody wants to use Plotly, they have to use the JavaScript version. Just because they're writing in Python, don't use the Python Plotly library. What you're doing is creating these JavaScript style JSON objects that are used. Okay, so here's a really trivial module. Okay, so this is JSON structure of a module. Describes a few things, gives the name of an executable, and lists out the fields that are contained in it. This is a ordered list, right? It's like a vector. And so these elements have a natural ordering to them. They have roles of input and output. And one of the key things they have is IDs and types. So when an application is generated, each one of these may generate an entry in the resulting user interface. So here there's, the mass goes here and the energy output shows up here. And so this is an application that was generated from that module definition file. So when it actually runs, when the user submits, the generated web-based JavaScript code will take that input and create a JSON input object to the executable, where it maps the IDs of the input fields to the user input values. And so this becomes the object that's input to the executable or its wrapper. And then it expects, as a return from that execution, a JSON object where IDs of output objects are mapped to their values. So in this case here, so it's pretty simple. Yeah. Again, sort of the input object that goes to this executable, which is expected to produce the output object. So we can run. Execution model was designed to be extensible. And we support lots of execution methods. So we can run jobs locally on the web server, on SSH accessible resources, elastically via OpenStack, on queue managed resources. We have integration with Aravada, Apache Aravada. And it's really easy to create a new execution model where you can just, there's a definition, and there's another definition file for this, and you basically just have to give this command to run as a prefix to it, and it will take that and then run the module's executable, what was defined in that module file, and then give it the input object and expect the output object to be produced. And there's also ways to deal with shared files via staging or shared mounts. There was a desire in use cases to have dynamic input to the user interface. So long running jobs would show some life to the user, and progress and early results could be displayed. And so there is messaging capabilities, which of course, requires some extra work on the module executable side. We've created a Python library for Python code to simplify that. When configured, that input object will be supplemented with some additional fields for like UDP ports, addresses, hosts, TCP ports, addresses, depending on the type of messaging. And there's also it's more complicated interactions that are possible, where actual question and answers can be encoded, and you can have interactive question and answer with the server. We started out, creating VMs, dedicated machines. It just became a lot easier to containerize. So the recommendation currently is, if you're going to run GenApp, is to pull the container version and work from there. There's some instructions available. It's pretty easy to set up. There's a container on Docker Hub. Docker is a target language, so you can actually, if you add some additional information to your module file, a bit about the environment, it can create Docker images and push them out to Docker Hub. This is really useful. We had some actor agent running with it with Abaco. You worked with Joe Stubbs on the Abaco side, and got GenApp to integrate with it. With not that huge of a lift to get there. Websites, everybody's concerned about security. We had another wonderful engagement. I really have to thank the community and the NSF for supporting all these wonderful groups. We had a trusted CI engagement. I worked with Terry Fleury and John Sage, and they did a report and sort of overviewed everything, and made recommendations which we implemented. Field validation from the user side, and certain settings. So we have been through a is it safe to use process. Okay, so let me get to some use cases. Not necessarily exhaustive, but I think I hit some of the main ones. So our first major use case was Sassy Web. So this was Joseph Curtis, was my primary contact at NIST, the Beamline scientist, part of that international SI2 award that I talked about. There's NIST in Gaithersburg, where they have a nuclear reactor, and those are some of the beamline shot from inside the facility. They'll get neutrons shooting down, and they'll catch stuff, at different instruments. And this was the first, our first go, and it worked. And Joseph created, Joseph did all the work. He wrapped all his own codes. He was the scientist on the researcher side of the equation. Let's see, let's bring it up. So, okay, so this is the very first one. This is the login. This is the, so there it is. I mean, and then sort of simulate, and then, okay, the buttons aren't that pretty. There's alignment's not that pretty. So this is the early version. So I have files out on the server, so I can grab something from here. Or I could browse local, and then, so this is going to run so hopefully it's running. So yeah, starting the job, there's the messaging coming through. We sent some things to the, some JSON to the server, and there's the plot. Okay, that was pretty quick. This did a torsional angle Monte Carlo, where it's taking a molecule and moving things about, and it's reporting the radius of gyration. So that's it. I mean, what are some nice features? Just feedback is really nice. Somebody can provide feedback, but also can select job or jobs, right? So I could say, I can attach a specific job to it, or jobs. I don't know if I can click properly. And when I send this email, it'll actually include the user's generated JSON input to their executable, as well as the output that's received and everything else. So when we're looking at this or debugging some issue with the underlying code, then all the information's there. So that's kind of nice. There's integrated context sensitive docs. I was in the Monte Carlo module, so it does that. So it's actually, it's pretty nice. And it's been used. That was pre our SGCI layout, look and feel, styling, engagement. There's the paper that sort of describes that, which was with our group. So on that, okay, on SASE web, okay, we've had almost 1,300 or maybe more than that registered users, and 75K jobs run. I forget how many hours of GPU and CPU times it was 100,000. It was a significant amount for some of these cases. How he helped, really, this use case was integral to many of the features that you see in GenApp today. They're working on migrating to the new UI. We're also migrating some servers around. We're doing development work on Jetstream too. So there's, let's see, he may be in the middle of, I know he's working on it right now. No, that's not the right website. Rocks. If I can spell. So this is the newer version with some better look and feel. Sort of looks the same right now, but it is much more controllable. Let's see, try that. Okay, we have some testing. Okay, yeah, I actually gave him some testing here for the Python library. This module is just, it demonstrates the no, we changed something there. So he's developing. So there's, it's sort of a cleaner look. There's the browse local files and browse server. I was going to show you a live demo of some of the messaging, updating plots through streaming method, which was working. But he's integrating that new library. So there's probably some changes. That's the development version. Anyway, they're working on that and getting all of SASE converted over. At the same time, he's converting from Flot to Plotly. So that's an ongoing project. And they're also integrating some new features. So, okay, let's go back here. Here's another website that was created by an undergraduate student working with the linear and nonlinear dynamics and vibrations laboratory. This is sort of an early, one of the early second uses of GenApp. And he did sort of a nice job, and this also sort of drove some additional use cases. This sort of drove the capability to, he knew nothing about, I mean, these aren't computer scientists. He created doc files for some of these pages, and we actually have an integrated facility to convert that doc into HTML by in that module file. By putting special indicator in front of the name. Let's see, available results. So part of it has automatic cache results, so we can go through here. And so these were simulations run on SDSC San Diego Supercomputing Center resources. I don't think new jobs are runnable right now since Comet's gone. There hasn't been a lot of usage of this, but we got it. It was working. It was just a matter of how much they wanted to use. Yeah, there's probably about a total of 700 jobs that we've recorded. Not huge. Okay. There's another lab with David Fushman, who was involved in the NMR research community, big ubiquitin. He's a big person in the field of ubiquitin study, which is a very interesting biological molecule. They have a diverse, over the years, he's developed a diverse collection of NMR software. And there were colleagues in doing experiments at NIST. And we worked together with support to get some of their code into GenApp. This was done, the primary work was done by a graduate student who was a chemistry student. There's a nice write-up. She was presented at the Gateways 2018, and there's a nice write-up there about her experience. And she actually ended up changing fields to computer science based on the experience. So that's, I don't have a demo of that website because it has been since superseded. We had a continuing, we were continuing to work with the Fushman lab, and a high school student, Matthew Casertano, took it another step, wrapped additional codes, and presented that at I think he had attended Gateways 2020, maybe a poster, and then he presented a lightning talk in 2021. If I'm correct, there's a nice write-up about him and about his experience with the Gateways conference. And he produced NMR Suite, which wrapped a diversity of these codes. So this is using, I'm just sort of the default Bootswatch theme. There are lots of different Bootstrap themes that are available. People seem to like the dark. But yeah, he created, he put all this together so that all these different codes from that lab could be made available. They put docs on that one. I found one without docs, but there's codes. There's context sensitive. Some of the pages have docs. I'm not going to go through it exhaustively. Oops. Yeah, I'm again. There's not a huge number of users that have been registered on that site. They've had maybe 2,600 jobs have run. There was a paper. Matthew subsequently ended up getting accepted to Caltech, and he's there now as an undergrad. In the small angle scattering field again, Andreas Larsson was a postdoc at the University of Oxford in UK when he came across GenApp, and he had some codes that they wanted to make available to people. I mean, this was one that was in Fortran. I think it still is underneath in Fortran. They wrote a wrapper for it. This new one maybe in Python. I'm not sure. And he's produced multiple science gateways and still producing them, and now having his students produce them. He's actually one of the users in terms of jobs. We checking a couple of days ago, he had greater than 10,000 jobs have been submitted through these websites, which is sort of good for this field. I mean, there's not a ton of people that are utilizing these things. It's just sort of a specific subset of the scientific community that are involved doing these experiments and needing to analyze their data. using these types of techniques. Some of these are pedagogical. This one is being used, I know, by multiple lecturers as to help teach some of the aspects of what happens in small angle scattering experiments. Here's another high school student, Maxim Sevliev, who was at junior, I think, at the time, Bernie High School, Texas. And he produced this science gateway for simulating coarse grain models of linear and torsionally stressed circular DNA. Now they're all using the default theme. They haven't learned all the options yet, which is fine. So, and you didn't have it automatically go to that. But there it is, and then we can submit it with the defaults. There's the sort of the data is going on. It's simulating. Making some linear DNA and solvating it. Okay, completed. There's the PDB, the atomic structure that it created with the ions in solvent, and it gives you the trajectory in a standard format and a log of the run. So that's really, I mean, high school students. Huh? Yeah. Here's another one. This was truly a dark code story. This John Nagel, who was one of the co-authors on the paper, wrote some codes, obscure codes for the analysis of X-ray diffuse scattering to obtain the bending modulus for membrane-oriented stacks. Okay, it's not for everybody, but it is important, and it was good code, and it was important to have it out there. Sebastian took it on, and he actually rewrote some of that underlying code using CUDA, and it's on. He did a nice job, really, with the. This was recent. It's only been 153 jobs, but again, it's not something everybody is going to use. So we're not expecting huge audiences. He integrated a YouTube video. You know, these are all GenApp generated sites, nice descriptions, everything else, you know, about the people involved. Yeah. So that's that was another nice usage. CG Runner. Okay, so the running NAMD is computationally intensive. I mean, for advanced people that do molecular dynamics simulation, they'll and they're used to it. They're used to running at the command line. But I had a lot of jobs to run. We're doing some work with fibrinogen, and I needed to make it easy, and I wanted it in GenApp, so I did. There's 1,000 jobs, one user, and this is running elastically on Jetstream 2 GPU instances, and it's actually quite nice. I said I haven't promoted it. You're the first people to hear about it in any kind of public forum. But it basically the NAMD group has this website, Charm GUI, which sets up your simulations and produces output, but will not actually run the simulations. So this allows one to load their output file and go through the process of equilibration and production runs to do your simulations. Another nice feature of GenApp is the job manager. Let's find a production run. I didn't memorize any of these, so these are production runs that have run previously. Let's find something that has some time on it. So this one ran for 2 hours. Hopefully it's not going to be a silly one that I bring up. It was a testing run, of course. So let's go back and find another one. I'll give it one more shot and then we'll move on. So that was that one. Of course, the one I grabbed randomly yesterday worked fine. These, I don't want these one held too. Let's grab something that has some. Those were obviously tests. These are some actual fibrinogen runs. Okay. So there's some debugging information here, but this is going back to an old run. It's loading the PDB. Those are all it gives some GPU information. It's what I wanted from it. And it's loaded up. Okay, there's the huge fibrinogen molecule. They're big. So that's sort of the last frame structure. There's a full DCD, and then there's sort of live temperatures and runs that come up, and those get streamed out. It's pretty nice. I like it. So we also used it. Here's another GenApp generated site. I guess I'm dragging you through too many of these. So AlphaFold has made a big impact on the community and the molecular biophysics community, and they've created lots of structures, sort of solving that DNA sequence to this has the full V2. Yeah, I knew there's some P's. And this is the database of all their molecules. I think there's 1 million that they produced that we ran through and did full hydrodynamic, structural, and CD calculations on the post-translated structures, and it's sort of downloadable. There's also a website. It's recorded at a database site, so someone could download the full database. So there's been a couple thousand jobs run. This KO came out, what, in 22? Is when we got that out. We took it a little further, where we can actually do interaction and do live calculations. There's another paper, it's a separate website. As our time is running, I'm not going to go take you through that. What I want to point out, except for the gateways I created myself, none of the mentioned gateways were created by computer science experts. We have high school students, undergrads, postdocs, and active researchers and domain scientists. Probably restricted to one and sometimes a few programming languages, typically with no web-based experience. And they got their codes out there to the community. We did a survey and we got 9 module developers responded. Okay, it's not a huge population. A couple of them had done Python Flask for exposing. So that's why it's not a 1. Most of them answered 1. And they liked it. They liked it. Some of the comments, they didn't like they thought the user interface could be improved, and we did spend time with that engagement doing that. What do I think 10 years in, after utilizing it? So, I mean, it works. I really like the design. I use it to create new gateways when needed, or if I need a new API end to something, I'll use it. And once prospective module developers get oriented, they also seem to like it. And there's always, with anything, there's a little bit of a ramp up period. But once they sort of understand, okay, define my inputs, these what's a JSON object? I mean, to them, that's new. So once you get it going, it's creating a new gateway is minimal overhead. It's primarily wrap and organize the modules. I did a couple days ago. I did some web searches for converting a command line app into a web app. I didn't find anything satisfying. I mean, I know about Qt and their web engine, and that, one potential option, but you're not talking about the execution models and things like that. I don't know. I didn't find anything that I could replace it with. So if I had that same problem today, I had a bunch of diverse codes that I needed to wrap and easily maintain. I don't know if there's any other solutions for me. Maybe there's some things. I mean, you start bringing CS teams, you can do anything, but these labs can't afford it. They don't have it. They don't have the time. I mean, this is not my primary thing. My primary thing is I'm doing research. I mean, I'm NIH supported, and I'm doing research in small angle scattering and analytical ultracentrifugation. So this is a tool which we've made available to the public and through the generous support of the NSF, helping us get it closer to ready for people. I really feel an interactive formalism, interface formalism. It's sort of an IDL or standard which describes the inputs and outputs as well as advanced bit of UI, sort of a UI plus UI IDL plus IDL, akin to GenApp's module files, would benefit the science research community. Some standard that they could plug into. Maybe there's work. I've done through some searches every now and then. I haven't seen anything sort of satisfying that wouldn't require huge lifting to get there. Domain scientists generally don't want to deal with the CS side. They have enough to do in getting their domain science done. With AI coming along, maybe Chat GPT 4000. I mean, it just came out with 40, I guess. I showed up in my Chat GPT. Maybe the AI could do this and create, large language models and things could take a code, or they could just describe it and create a nice website, or I would prefer if they would be some nice interface that they formalism or module definition file they could create. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years with all this. So if you're interested and you have a use case, I typically find CS audiences are less interested than research scientists, because they can already do it and have tools that are potentially useful. But if you're interested or you have a use case, I mean, it's a lightweight way to create a robust, full-featured web app. You go to genapp.rocks, there's some tutorials, click to learn. There's some papers, some documentation. Contact me directly. I'm available. Anybody that's interested in utilizing it, I'm happy to help. We haven't gone after any funding since it ran out in 2017 was our last award, 2016, 2017. And I'm just using it and improving it as needed by the use cases that come across. I have so many people to thank that have helped in this whole process. Of course, special thanks to Sandra and Claire for helping allowing me to talk to you today. There was some people involved in the core development along the way, the people involved in module development, various engagements or suggestions, people they've worked with, infrastructure support. That's mostly Jetstream support team, because I love I love having the academic cloud. I think that's really wonderful. Funding from NIH and NSF. NIH because that's my primary support, and so they don't directly support GenApp development. NSF has directly supported GenApp through the specific awards in 12 and 17, as well as through the Exceed allocations and the Access allocations. Google Summer of Code, we had some students they supported. It's a wonderful SGCI Summer Interns program. We had, I don't know, 3 interns go through, maybe more, I'm not sure. NIST that supported Joseph Curtis and his colleague Susan Kruger. NIH, and then these groups, and then I probably didn't get them all in here, but I had an acknowledgements logo page. I keep thinking more I can add. Yeah, if there's just somebody that was involved that I didn't mention, my humblest apologies, or some group that were involved that I didn't mention. There's some publications. I took up all the time, but I'm still here for questions. Thank you so much for listening. And don't hesitate to contact me if you're interested at all in utilizing GenApp. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emre. Yeah, we are almost at the full hour. With that, we still have time for a question. Thank you so much for all the examples, and I really like that so many students also getting to use science gateways. So yeah, if you have a question, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. I know we have only 1 minute left. Let me
We have a
see.
question.
There's a question. I was hoping for an example app with output from query words in the form of a table with cells containing dynamic links. Comments welcome. Do you have something for that, Emre?
I was hoping for an example app with output from a query word in the form of a table with cells containing dynamic links. Okay, so I didn't get heavily into the repeaters. Where can I find a decent example? Sassy Web. Let's see. Let's find one of these. So this is. He was working on one.
While you are looking for it, I know a couple of people might have to jump off. So we will share the slides. We will share the recording. We are happy to get you in contact with Emre. And with that, anyone who can still stay on and look at this, we look at the table.
Thank you again all for attending. So I think I have. All right. Do that under demo. One of my test sites. I was actually Joseph was here a few weeks ago from NIST, came and visited me, and we were collaborating on additional features. And I think, yeah, here's a matrix repeater. So here's one where, okay, this is the field, how many rows? Of course, it could be a calculated field, and there's sort of automatic. There's vector pre-population of those row names that are definable in the JSON module file, optionally. It only had 3, so it just duplicates the last one. And then how many columns, right? So those are how many columns. And so here's this matrix, and actually those matrix elements are 3. There's a text field, a numeric field, and a switch. Okay, so those could be links. I mean, you can put whatever you want in those field types and build matrices of those types. And then this is sort of my testing example. I can hit submit, and what it's done for the output, the input to the executable, when you hit submit, is create these matrices with the values. No, I didn't put any values in. So if we put something here, and then we do it again, we'll get there's our value, and it's at the appropriate place in that matrix. So it should match. So there's 1, 2, 3 high. That's the repeat pair 1. That was sort of the ID of that field, which is repeating on this matrix repeater, which is defined on these 2 integers. So is that what you were asking for?
So very nice. Where would one host the app? How to determine? So the app, I think mostly, yeah, I'll let you answer, Emre. And
okay, so
yeah,
I was starting to create individual virtual machines for each one, and that got out of hand and was difficult to manage. And some of these are low utilization resources. So what I did was, once after we containerized and during the migration from Jetstream to Jetstream 2, I went ahead and containerize them all and set up a general mechanism. So if so these are a lot of containers that are running through this one node on Jetstream 2 is running a lot of these. This is a non-GPU node. I have a separate one for GPU that need GPU. So if you wanted to run it, you could do one of two things, or you can do whatever you want. But two primary things you could do is, one is pull the container and run it locally, and then you'd have a web server running on your local machine that's not exposed to the web. If you wanted something that was publicly accessible, you would probably either have to go through your institution or your organization and create something, or you could put it in the cloud somewhere if you want to pay for a cloud, Amazon or whatever, run the container there and then plumb it to the web. Or you could contact me and I will gladly set up another container for your testing and give you access to it. And it'll be plumbed and we can give it whatever domain name you want to give it, if you own a domain name. If not, it'll get a genapp.rocks tag.
Hey, thank you so much. And Mona says, thank you for an interesting presentation. She had also her hand up, but she might have had to leave. Yeah, she's not on the call anymore. Emre,
Okay.
thanks again.
You're welcome.
And it's,
all right.
yeah, great.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. And I'm always happy to talk about GenApp. So, if you have a team or anybody got some students who want to learn, I'm happy to take them through it. So thank you again. And thank you again, Sandra and Claire, for making this possible. All righty. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Emre. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Thanks.